3 minutes late, but we're doing it. I like to be on time. I'm going to talk about what is the most worthwhile thing to do. The most worthwhile thing to do, okay? Certified thief 7 days a week. That's the best username I've ever seen. Hey everyone, here we go. We're going out with a bang. This is my last public talk. We're going out with a bang. We're going out loud. I'm going to be very loud, okay? Today's loud. But not like volume-wise, like philosophically. I'm going to be very loud. I need to get closer to the screen, I forgot. I can't. No one can hear me. I'm getting a new phone, I promise. Let's just wait another moment. Hi, everyone. Let's just wait another moment because I've noticed it takes a minute for people to show up, and I want y'all to hear what's going on today, okay? Hi. Just 15 more seconds. 15 more seconds. And then I'm going to start, okay? Talking about what is the most worthwhile thing you can do in your entire life. Y'all probably already know what I'm going to say. I'm just drinking cold coffee that I made 5 hours ago. So, I also have a water bottle. No top. Just gonna drink it like that. So, that's my support team for today. Okay. What's actually today? Today might be a little bit spicy. Okay. But I'm just being real. I'm just keeping it real. Okay? I'm going to talk about the most worthwhile thing you can do in your whole entire life, okay? And I don't think anyone's going to be surprised by this. And I'm going to get right to the point, not waxing poetic about, things to get here. The most worthwhile thing you can do in your entire life is prioritizing your spiritual development. Okay, and I'm about to spend like half an hour talking about why, so get comfortable. Your relationships and your job and your passions and your desire to serve people and your desire to bring justice into the world, all of those things are incredibly valuable, but all of those things are, look at my hair, all of those things are contained within your spiritual priority, okay? Those are realities that are dancing within the larger reality of your spiritual disposition. That's your number one priority and the most worthwhile thing you can work on. The most worthwhile thing you can do is work on your spiritual disposition because that informs all of the actions that you take in every other aspect of your life. It's getting down to the root level here. The beating heart of the entire operation of moving through the world. Because when we actually make our spiritual priority our main disposition, that is the only way that we spiritualize our entire life. That's the only way. Because people are always saying that they want to make their entire life spiritual. They want to bring mindfulness and meditation out into their daily affairs. But the only way that you actually do that is by making spirituality the primary consideration and the base consideration of all of your actions. Because you can't, for instance, you can't secretly view your romantic relationships as the primary consideration and then expect to consistently turn that into a spiritual occasion. Get real. I'm saying all of this with love because it's actually how it works, okay? It's logical. You can't secretly put the world first. You can't secretly put the perishable first, okay? What you do is put the imperishable first. Okay, this is traditional spiritual language. You have to put the imperishable first. You have to put that which is beyond the world first, and then drag that passion for that out into the world, okay? So don't get me twisted, all right? The world is God, right? But the world as we experience it, as humans who are embodied, is Prakriti, which is the field of constant change and is the field of perishability, okay? I talk about this when I talk about the 36 tattvas, okay, in my other classes. The field of Prakriti is the field of living and dying. It's the field of birth and death. It's the field of creation and dissolution, okay? If you make your relationships in the small sense the primary consideration, you will inevitably suffer in a way that's not transformative because bodies are perishable and people are perishable. Okay, this is grim, but I promise you this is going to be okay, right? Instead, what you want to do is make what is appearing in the guise of other people, God, the primary consideration. And then you can view all of the people in your life as beautiful and sacred transformations of consciousness. A person is a transformation of consciousness, right? This does not make our relationships any less meaningful or any less beautiful. This doesn't make us have any less of a duty to the people in our life either, okay? We still have responsibilities within the field of change. We just have a different disposition. We aren't just serving our partners or our lovers as people individually. We are serving God through them, okay? Have you ever been on a dating profile and seen someone who's a Christian say God first? This is kind of what I'm saying, okay? But I'm actually going to go into the differences between the Christian theology and what I'm saying, okay? Because we don't live in a culture that's very comfortable with confronting perishableness, okay? I'm just going to balance my hair out. We don't live in a culture that's comfortable with confronting perishableness. Our culture basically ignores the complicated realities of human embodiment. And what I mean by that is the reality of the perishable nature of the body. Okay, this is like, we can't ignore this. This isn't difficult to understand either when we think about American culture, because you can look around in American culture for about 5 minutes and all you see is an obsession with youth. What's the priority within American culture? What are the priorities here? Decreasing wrinkles. That seems like a priority. Tightening, loosening skin on your face. That seems like a priority. Keeping your energy levels up, like at teenage levels, even if you're 50 years old, seems like a priority. Because if that's the case, you can get more stuff done. Oh, and then we start getting into the foundational ideals of American culture. Okay? This is an incredibly complex issue that people literally write books about, but there's two main things going on with the obsession with youthfulness in our culture. And I swear to God, all of this is related to what I'm talking about, okay? Just come with me, okay? The first thing that's going on is that the dominant American culture is white Protestant Christian culture. And obviously there are microcultures and subcultures that are thriving within America, but there is a dominant culture in America that basically affects everyone whether they know it or not. And one of these dominant values is based in something called prosperity gospel, which is basically the theological idea that increased faith in a Christian God will bestow abundant financial and health blessings upon you, okay? Something that's talked about less in the discourse around prosperity gospel is actually that this is where the American work ethic comes from, okay? So this youthfulness in our energy levels. Benjamin Franklin was famous for saying, early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise, okay? I feel like all of us were told this in middle school, and it's like ingrained in our brains. And that's very foundational here. Because what that is saying is that the more you grind, the harder you work, with more energy, that's why you need more energy, the more pleased God will be with you. And thus, you will be granted more money and more land and more prosperity, okay? So naturally, these Christian social ideals have blended with the economic system of our country as well, right? So the way capitalism is functioning right now in our world today requires massive exploitation of labor, obviously. I don't need to go into this. Everybody knows this. So blending these questionable religious ideals with an economic system that relies on an obedient workforce is the perfect storm for modern people of all races to be completely burnt out. And obviously this is a bigger issue for anyone with a marginalized identity, whether it's racial or physical, like having a disability, right? Because if you're told that you have to have all of this energy all the time and be youthful and have this obsession with youthfulness and you have some sort of an autoimmune disease, you're like, what's fucking wrong with me, right? There's nothing wrong with you. Okay. So that's one thing, okay? I swear to God, this is related. The second thing is similar to this idea with the prosperity gospel and obsession with youthfulness. The other larger issue is that American Christian cultural consciousness is utterly fearful of death, like death itself, the concept of death. It's the number one fear. And it's probably because the stakes are really high, right? When you die, you've got two options. You either go to heaven or you go to hell. Or maybe if you're Catholic, you go to purgatory, and that fucking sucks too, right? So there can be a thing of either totally avoiding this imminent reality because you've been conditioned to believe that it's probably going to be a bad time when you die, right? You're probably going to go to hell because like everything you have to do to get into heaven actually fucking blows, just saying. Or you obsess over it and allow the thought of going to hell rule your entire experience in a way that perpetually takes you out of the present moment. Yikes. 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 Okay? But here's the thing. This fear of death has become an obsession with youthfulness. Okay? As if you could outrun this imminent truth that all of us, even Jeff Bezos, will have to contend with eventually, okay? Normative Christian theology is not set up in a way that allows people to develop a positive relationship to this unchanging reality of death, right? It does not offer a beneficial relationship to death. It does not offer a transformational relationship to death. Death is not our enemy at all. It's our teacher. It's a reality that is actually always beside us. It's right here. And what if you moved with the awareness that death, like as if it's an entity, like a person, was actually always walking beside you, like right next to you, right now. This is your number one homie, okay? And it's not in a way that's supposed to scare you. It's not in a way that's supposed to punish you. It's in a way that keeps you fucking real, okay? It's in a way that keeps you present. It's in a way that keeps you in your heart, Can you imagine? If you were friends with death? If this was the case, could that actually change your conduct in a way that was actually beneficial to yourself and to the world? Could it bring you more and more into the present moment? If your best friend, who always walks beside you, was the reminder that each moment could be your last moment, okay? Now, those are different considerations if we have a theological approach to death. That's how we become friends with the field of constant change, the field of perishability, the concept of perishability, and this entity of death that I'm talking about is prakriti, okay? What makes this way of looking at death different from normative Christianity is that it has a more digestive quality, okay? And the reason why we need to make spirituality our priority, the only worthwhile thing to do, is because of this digestive quality. Now, I want you to listen to these questions I'm about to ask you very carefully. What if the purpose of spirituality was to metabolize tragedy? And what happens if you send your grief through the digestive tract of your worldview? Like, write this down and think about it for the rest of the day. That's your homework. What actually happens when you send your grief through the digestive tract of your worldview? Is it metabolized? Or does your worldview right now just cover it over? Is it tucked away in the closet of your unconscious mind? And if that's the case, is it actually the puppet that's leading you? That can be the thing. Does it have somewhere to go so it can be integrated into your evolution? Can it, grief, become the grist for the mill of your transformation? See, that sort of a thing is what a coherent spiritual worldview can actually offer you. It can allow you to take life's difficulties and drink them like wine. You can literally become Shiva, who drinks the suffering of the world and transforms it into nectar. This is why his throat is blue. That's a little bit different from normative Christianity, okay? I'm just going to point out that that's a little bit different, okay? And beyond the need for a functioning spiritual digestive system, there are other considerations that can really underline the importance of making our spirituality our primary consideration and the most worthwhile thing we ever do in our life. Okay. There may come a time when your only refuge in this life is your commitment to your disposition towards life. There may come a time when your only refuge is your commitment to your disposition towards life. This is some real ass shit right now, okay? Your spiritual disposition is everything, because your disposition is actually your sustenance, okay? We have a digestive tract and we have our sustenance. It's what fuels you to be able to take on life, especially when life isn't going your way, okay? And your spiritual disposition is everything because your disposition is actually imperishable, okay? Your disposition, if you practice it and integrate it, is eternal. Your disposition is something that doesn't expire, okay? Maybe your bank account expires. Maybe your body begins to expire as you age, this imminent reality. But if you work on your disposition before that time comes, if it hasn't already happened, you will always have that. You still have your mind and you still have your heart until it stops beating, okay? Your disposition is what will support you throughout your entire life. Because you're gonna get old, okay? I'm 30, and I don't know how old all of you are, but we're all getting old, okay? I'm basically a spring chicken still. And you will get sick if you're not already sick, okay? I have an autoimmune disease. You will have periods of joy, and you will have periods of struggle. It never stops. Because I do not teach a form of spirituality that guarantees a life without struggle. That does not exist. I teach a form of spirituality that allows you to become resilient in the face of struggle, that allows you to view everything you experience as an occasion for transformation. That is an eternal approach. Because if you rely too much on material items or substances or physical supports for your spiritual well-being, those things can and will fail you eventually, because those things are perishable. Anything that's perishable that you rely on too much will become your limitation. I'm being so fucking real right now. Think of it like this. If you base your entire spiritual practice around movement, like postural yoga or dance or whatever, beautiful things that I love, right? What happens if you get injured? What happens when you get old? You've been relying on something perishable. So what do you do when that thing inevitably goes away? Questions. Deep questions. If you put too much emphasis on your diet for your spiritual well-being, what happens if you experience a period of scarcity? Like, for real, like, what happens if there's a breakdown in the food chain and you can't get mangoes anymore, or you can't get maca powder anymore? I'm dead serious. I am not trying to be alarmist. I'm being very realistic. This is the field of constant change. We have to become friends with death, Prakriti, okay? These things, like movement and diet, are supportive of the larger process that we are in, but they can't be the primary consideration. Listen, okay? I'm talking about the primary consideration. I said during my talk on Tuesday that diet absolutely has an effect on our state of being, which is the one thing we can work on no matter what. You drink too much coffee, and that has an effect on you, okay? So it's not something we should ignore, but it's not the focus, okay? The focus. The primary focus is the approach that we take towards life. And ultimately, our approach is something that is developed in the mind. Our approach towards life is our disposition, okay? Disposition, approach, all of these things, interchangeable. And refining this approach is the most worthwhile thing we can do in our entire life, because there may come a time when it is the only thing we have to rely on. How many people die on a hospital bed? Are you going to be the exception? This is long haul spirituality. This isn't like temporary spirituality. This isn't like, let's just do this for a couple of years just for fun. You know, whatever, you can do that. But what I teach is an approach towards life that is applicable for the whole show. The whole show. So I'm being slightly doom and gloom right now, okay? But the reason why this is worthwhile as well is because when we make spirituality our priority, life actually gets so much better. So infinitely better. Okay, so it's not just like, this isn't just like an emergency thing. This is like actually something that makes our entire life more beautiful. Because a result of taking the spiritual process more seriously is that we become more and more subtle. Okay, this is a word that comes up a lot with me. So life actually becomes a lot less complicated the more subtle we become. It becomes more simple, right? I was saying on Tuesday that we need to train the mind to slow down as part of working on our state. What happens when we slow down? We begin to notice things. Life doesn't just pass us by. A cup of tea becomes even more pleasurable. That may be the only pleasure we need. A late summer walk with like shifting evening light, the sun's a little bit lower in the sky, ecstasy, okay? Our ability to connect with other people actually deepens when we learn how to slow down, which is part of the spiritual process, which is part of our approach, okay? Our heart opens. That's a gift. We begin to embed ourselves in a spiritual process, and that process will permeate our entire life. We want to fall in love with the process. We have to fall in love with the process, and we cannot lust after the spiritual product. A lot of people have too much focus on the product. The product will always die, but the process is eternal, okay? What if you fell in love with the downs of life as much as the ups of life through this process? What if you loved the confusion of the process as much as you loved the clarity that the process grants? What if you loved the contraction that you experience in the process as much as the expansion, right? You have to fall in love with the whole process, because all of it makes up the waters of the spiritual process and journey that you're swimming to. All of it. Not just the good stuff. All of it. What happens when you fall in love with the spiritual process and not just the spiritual reward? Where do you end up when you fall in love with the process? In your body, in your mind, in your heart, where do you end up? You end up in the present moment. You're right here, right now, exactly as you are, actually. When you frame your spiritual process around a reward, like, being happier or something, or like getting more money, which is a thing that people have somehow colluded with spirituality, or going to heaven, as the Christians said, like I was saying earlier. When you frame your process around a reward, you rip yourself out of the present moment. If we are oriented around a reward, as in something we don't have right now, the present moment actually becomes our primary place of irritation. We become irritated with how much further we think we have to go to get to this reward, to get to heaven, to get the money, to get the relationship, right? The spiritual process is about being comfortable with the now, right now. And if we build our entire spiritual process around a sense of irritation with the now, when we finally get the thing that we think we need, we may not even experience it in its fullness, because the attainment of it was actually built upon struggle. That was motivated by the pain that we experienced in the present moment, as opposed to the pleasure of the present. The whole thing is valorous fighting against the now. We want to become friends with the now. We want to become friends with the field of change, okay? The spiritual process, the spiritual disposition, is about finding joy in not being where we think we need to be yet, okay? If you're only interested in a reward or an outcome or a product, but don't fall in love with the process of getting there, you may never get there. You may never get there. The process, which is eternal, is our disposition. It's our approach. So I'd like to end here with 2 questions for you. And if you have a piece of paper, you can write them down and think about it, okay? Can you work to improve yourself without looking down on yourself? What would that be like? Can you work to improve yourself without looking down on yourself. And then here's another question that's a little bit spicier, okay? And I'm not going to like explain this. I want you to just think about it. Who are you when nothing is going your way? Who are you when nothing is going your way? Imagine that version of you. And contemplate how your disposition could be related to that. Okay? These are my Zen koans for the day. Okay? So basically what I said today, the most worthwhile thing you can do in your entire life is get clear about your spiritual approach. Because your approach is the thing that can hold up regardless of what's happening in your life. And your approach can actually enliven every aspect of your life too. So this isn't just your emergency plan. It's actually something you can do to revitalize your entire experience of life. So it's truly a win-win situation. There's no losing. Okay, guys, this is the thing. There's no losing when you do this. You're only winning. I'm dead serious. This is a win-win-win-win situation, okay? So I am here to help you get clear about your spiritual disposition. This is literally my job. So if you're ready to take this stuff seriously in a more meaningful and intimate way, I would love to talk with you about what it's like to actually work with me, okay? So please feel free to DM me and we can talk about all this sorts of stuff, right? And this is my last public talk, okay? This is my last public talk. On Monday, I'm opening up my membership site where I'm going to be giving talks just like this every week for about half an hour, okay? And so before I go, I want to open up some time for questions. I see some people wrote stuff and I had to pretend it wasn't happening so I could talk. But if anyone has a question, please go ahead and ask me a question about anything I said. And I'll just kind of do a little scroll right now and see what happened. So, is survival considered a reward? So, I view my spiritual approach as my reward. Because, as my survival, sorry. I view my spiritual disposition as my survival. And so, survival could be considered a reward. I don't know how, I think I'd need, that's kind of an abstract question. I think I'd need more. Somebody, can you work to improve yourself without looking down on yourself? Good, thank you for writing that down. Who are you when nothing is going your way? I'm glad that you needed this conversation today. Does anyone have a question for me before I disappear and these conversations end up on my membership site? Okay. Does anyone have a question? I'm happy to answer. I could also tell, I don't want to stay too much longer, but I could also tell a story. Maybe I won't. Somebody has to ask a question, and then maybe I'll tell a story. I hope this was inspiring. What if your approach is in conflict with close relationships? Yeah, this is the last one before I do the membership site. What if your approach is in conflict with close relationships? I need to know more about what's going on with you. I actually saw that you DM'd me, so maybe we can continue this conversation. What about the meditation class? Oh yeah, I'm opening up registration for my 2-part meditation course that I'm teaching with Connor Marvin in like an hour and a half. so I'll post that on my story. My teacher, I learned all of this stuff from my teacher. Okay, none of these are my ideas. I have a very unique way of speaking and elucidating concepts, and that's one of my skills, but I am indebted to my spiritual tradition, and I'm indebted to my own teacher who has taught me all of these things, right? And what has worked for me for 8 years is somebody getting really fucking real with me about the realities of human embodiment, okay? And so today was kind of like a taste of like what it really takes, okay? These are some real considerations. Because if the spiritual path is about understanding and seeing and gaining knowledge of what reality is, we have to face all of these different levels of reality in our day-to-day life. And if you cannot contend with the reality of death, you will not be able to contend with the reality of the all-permeating nature of consciousness. That's just a lower level reality that leads to the higher level reality, okay? Even though there's no higher and lower. Is the membership the same as the one-on-one mentoring? No, it's not. It's just going to be for every week, I'm going to give a 30-minute talk, and there will be room for questions and answers similar to this. But that's the time commitment that I'm able to make to support you all at this level. And then my one-on-one work is totally different. It's giving people my undivided attention for an hour every week, and then we spend time in between meetings talking on Voxer and things like that. It's a much more relationship. It's a relationship that I have with you. And the membership site is another level of relationship, but it's not really the same as my mentorship work. And I'm going to be talking about kind of like basically whatever's alive for me, which is the only thing I think about is the spiritual process. Okay, I'm like so boring. And so like, I'm just going to be talking about what's up for me. I have a whole list. I already have like weeks of content for the things that we're going to talk about. But my mentorship work is always going to be kind of more specific. So I appreciate all of you for being here. If you want to learn more about the mentorship work, which is still enrolling, please DM me. And then I'm going to be opening registration for my meditation course with Connor today. And then on Monday, I'm opening up the membership site. Okay? So that's pretty much it. I super appreciate all of you who came to all of my talks. I gave 8 talks. Okay? And some of you were here for every one of them, and I see you. Okay? I love the determination. And other than that, we will just continue to relate with each other in this digital space on some level, and I will talk to you all later.